Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I'll be sharing my impressions of Tales of Arise, a new action RPG releasing on PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, Series S and X, and on PC. I've played every Tales game that's received a European console release since Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube, and I love this series for its fun cast of characters and action-focused combat. These days a lot of JRPGs are going for more action-focused gameplay to appeal to a wider audience, so one of the things that made the Tales series stand out in the past is becoming the norm. It's clear that BANDAI Namco is also aiming to attract new fans to this series with Tales of Arise. This is probably one of the highest quality JRPGs I've played in recent years, and it's clear that they want the Tales series to reach new heights. But even though a lot of the things that fans love about the series are still intact, there are a few gameplay systems that have been removed or reworked to fit the new direction for the series. Does Tales of Arise change the formula too much, or are these changes what the series needed in order to get the attention it deserves? I'll be letting you know what I thought after finishing the main story, all of the side quests and endgame content, and after doing pretty much everything there is to do in my initial playthrough. In this video, I'll be avoiding any story-related spoilers, so unless it's necessary to make a point, I won't be showing any story content past the opening hours of the game. So this video is mainly going to be focusing on the gameplay systems and the different things you can do while playing Tales of Arise. Tales of Arise's story revolves around the ongoing tension between the inhabitants of Dahna and the people from the technologically advanced planet Rena. Using their overwhelming power, Rena invaded Dahna and has ruled over their people for 300 years, forcing the Dahnan citizens to lead a life of harsh manual labor for the benefit of their Renan lords. The story is told from the perspective of Alphen, a Dahnan slave that has his face concealed by an iron mask. Alphen has no memory from before he became a slave, and he is also unable to feel physical pain. He still sustains injuries just like any other person, but his lack of feeling can leave him unaware of his injuries. Alphen finds himself caught up in a situation involving Shionne, a Renan woman with a curse that causes her to shock any person that touches her. Due to her curse, Shionne usually tries to keep her distance from people, but after learning about Alphen's inability to feel pain, she reveals that she intends to kill the 5 Renan lords that currently rule over the Dahnan citizens. Shionne has a powerful blazing sword that can be used to take down the Renan lords, but due to the heat of the sword, she can't wield it herself. So she agrees to join forces with Alphen, who can withstand the pain that comes from holding the sword. Shionne wants to take down the lords for reasons of her own, and Alphen wants to take them down to secure the freedom for the people in Dahna. They both have their own personal reasons for wanting to take down the lords, but when they first start traveling together, they just don't get along at all. Or rather, Alphen tries to get along with Shionne, but she's just not interested in being friendly with a Dahnan, and only sees Alphen as another tool that she can use for her own goals. The friction between Alphen and Shionne was a bit exhausting to listen to early on in the game. The way Shionne acts does make sense as you start to learn more about her, but since you get thrown right into the action as soon as the game starts, it seemed like she would be a pretty unlikable character, since the pacing of the story didn't give me much time to fully grasp the situation she was in. The earlier sections of the story progressed a bit too quickly, so it was hard for any of the situations that happened to sink in. It felt like a lot of the issues the characters were facing had less of an impact than they should have. But as I continued through the story, I was introduced to even more characters, and as I got to know about each of the party members, I started to like them a lot more than I thought I would. Surprisingly, it wasn't the main story that made me like the characters. It was the banter that takes place while roaming in the world, the skit conversations that happen after specific events, and the optional side quests that you can do that really made the characters' personalities shine. The situations the characters get themselves into and the way they interact with the people they meet showed me a side of them that I would have missed if I only focused on playing through the main story. The new visual style for skits is something I actually liked more than I expected to as well. Skits are conversations that can give additional insight into the party members' thoughts and feelings. In the previous games, skits used 2D anime character portraits, but in Tales of Arise, they're using the characters' in-game models displayed in comic or manga-style panels that display the characters with a wider range of expressions and motions that made them much more entertaining to watch. It is possible to ignore skits when they first appear and re-watch them at the campfire later on, but I'd recommend watching them when you're first prompted to, so you can see how the characters are reacting to events in the moment. One thing I like about a lot of the interactions that take place in the game is that Alphen and Shionne aren't always the center of attention, and the other characters are just as involved in the overall story as they are, even down to the side quests where different characters in your party that are best suited to dealing with a request are the ones that will accept and handle the conversations with the people in need. It's a small detail, but it's one that helps to reinforce that the other characters in the party are just as important, and it's not always the main character that matters. I've played a lot of JRPGs, some with turn-based combat systems, some with action-focused ones, and some that have a mix of both. But I have to say, in terms of action-based gameplay in a JRPG, Tales of Arise has some of the best combat I've experienced, and it's some of the most fun I've had while playing an RPG. Tales of Arise uses a full action-based combat system. Up to 4 characters can participate in combat at a time, but it's possible to replace any of the active members with those that are on standby whenever it's necessary. The other 3 active party members that I didn't have control of were controlled by the AI, but it was possible to freely switch to them whenever I needed to. The AI characters performed their roles well, and it was possible for me to fine-tune the skills they used and how they behaved in certain situations. To start off with, I could assign up to 6 skills to my character to use in battles, 3 for use while a character was on the ground, and another 3 for use in mid-air. As I progressed further into the game, the amount of skills I could set doubled, giving me a total of 12 skills that I could assign while in battle. Using skills consumed a resource called AG that would quickly recover when not attacking. So in between combos, depending on the character I was using, I would often do a quick evade to reset my AG recovery. Unless I was directly controlling Kisara, there was no way for me to block enemy attacks in Tales of Arise. Instead, each character can do an evasive sidestep or a roll to avoid enemy attacks. When I evaded an attack with perfect timing, I could use a counter attack that would teleport me towards the enemy I was targeting. I could also unlock passive skills that would let me use this counter attack in different situations in a fight. So there were times where I could just teleport across the battlefield rapidly if the requirements were met. As I got further into the game, perfectly evading or taking damage would help to build a character's overlimit. Once a character enters an overlimit state, they can continuously attack without their combos being interrupted by enemies, and they could use their powerful mystic art attacks that were only available during overlimit. When comboing an enemy without interruption, a blue diamond on the enemy would start to fill. Once it was full, I could activate a boost strike team attack that could kill smaller enemies in one hit and deal large amounts of damage to nearby enemies. This is similar to a system that was in a few other Tales games, but in Tales of Arise they're much more of a spectacle, and they're pretty fun to watch since every character pair has their own unique attack. After winning battles, I received experience points that would go towards increasing the level of my characters, and skill points that I could spend to unlock new abilities. The skill panel displays each title a character has unlocked. Character titles are unlocked by fulfilling different requirements like cooking a certain amount of meals, clearing certain quests, or completing specific battle-related objectives. So I was encouraged to take part in multiple activities if I wanted to make my characters strong. Each title has 5 nodes that contain various abilities that can be bought with skill points, and when all 5 nodes in a title have been obtained, that character will gain an additional permanent stat boost depending on the title that was completed. In Tales games or other action RPGs that have multiple characters to choose from, I'd find myself briefly trying the other characters out, but then I'd end up gravitating back towards the main character when playing through the story for the first time. But in Tales of Arise, I found myself playing as everyone, because all of the characters are so different and very fun to play. Each character has their own set of skills and mechanics, and even if they're not an active member in the party, they can still be called into battle to use boost attacks that can remove enemy advantages. Alphen is a close-range melee character that can extend his sword arts into flaming edge attacks at the cost of his own health. His flaming edge attacks can be upgraded, allowing them to be charged for even more damage, but since it drains his health so rapidly, there's a high risk of dying if you get interrupted by an enemy's attack. Alphen's boost attack can be used to knock down almost any enemy, which can be helpful if you need to interrupt an incoming attack. Shionne can support the party and recover their health using her astral arts, and she can also deal long-range damage with her gun attacks. When using Shionne's bomb attacks, the art button can be held down to modify the attack and make it more powerful by consuming special bullets. Shionne's boost attack fires a beam that knocks down enemies that are in the air and temporarily disables their ability to fly, making it easier for melee characters to land ground-based attacks. Kisara is a melee fighter that can protect the party with her shield. Instead of using an evade like the other characters, Kisara uses her shield to block enemy attacks, reducing the amount of damage she receives. Certain arts can be used while blocking with the shield, and when perfectly blocking an enemy's attack, she can unleash powerful counterattacks. Kisara's boost attack can be used to stop enemies that are charging towards the party and weaken any additional charge attacks. Using her boost attack will also temporarily increase ally defenses. Law specializes in fighting at close range by using rapid punches and kicks. When Law continuously attacks enemies without being staggered, his attack and elemental attack increases, making him powerful when he's not being targeted by enemies. Law's boost attack can break through armored and shielded enemies' defenses, making them less resistant to attacks. Rinwell is a long-range fighter that mainly uses astral arts to attack enemies. She can deal a lot of damage with her arts, and some of her arts can almost cover the whole battle area. Rinwell can also save and store arts once they finish charging, and can combine them with other arts to create higher tier spells. This even includes spells that she hasn't learnt yet. Rinwell's boost attack can interrupt and down enemies that are in the middle of casting an art. She can also steal the art that they were in the middle of casting and then send it right back at them during a follow-up combo. And Dolahim is a hybrid character that can use close-range rod-based melee combos, supportive healing arts, or long-range offensive arts. If Dolahim perfectly evades an attack, he will gain a bonus to his attack range and penetration that will let him interrupt enemy attacks more effectively and score more critical hits. Dolahim's boost attack summons vines from the ground to lock down fast-moving enemies and restrict their evasive abilities. Combat can get very special effect heavy and turn into a bit of a fireworks show, and the screen shake can get a bit distracting at times. For the most part, I didn't mind it too much since I love seeing over-the-top special effects in my RPGs, but there were times where it was hard to see what I was doing when my party members started using their big attacks. During the earlier hours of the game, I could brute force my way through fights without giving it too much thought, and the game did a very good job of making me feel powerful, because all of the flashy action and combos during normal fights made me feel like a pro. But once I had to use each character on their own during the training ground side missions, I realized that I really didn't understand how to use the characters as much as I thought I did, and I wasn't using the combat system to its full potential. The training grounds are an area where you can practice combos with a character or complete challenges with specific characters and rule sets in order to receive rewards. Sadly, there aren't many challenges to choose from, so I'm hoping more get added to the game over time. When I tried my luck with the Alphen training mission, I died on the very first mission. It was at that moment I realized that it was time to stop hoarding skill points and actually upgrade my equipment and learn how to play properly. There were various things I could do to upgrade my characters, but to start off with, I needed to make some money. Upgrading equipment costs money, and early on, I didn't really make much from just killing enemies, so doing some fishing was a pretty effective way for me to make some cash. Tales of Arise has an interactive fishing minigame with rewards based on the different types of fish you catch. In order to start fishing, I needed to go to specific fishing areas around the world, and then select my rod and the appropriate lure for the types of fish I wanted to catch. Then I could use a specific button prompt to attract the attention of the fish I wanted to catch, and then I would need to follow the on-screen commands to exhaust the fish's stamina and reel it in before the line of my rod broke. It did take a bit of time for me to figure out how the fishing system actually worked, but once I knew what I was doing, it was a lot of fun. Some of the fish that I caught could only be sold for money, but there were fish that could be used to prepare meals for the party. When staying at an inn or while at campfires, I was given the option to cook food using the recipes I'd found in order to give my characters various temporary buffs. I could make things like sushi that increased the amount of EXP I obtained after battles, and depending on who I selected to prepare the food, there were often times where a unique skit would be shown. After getting a bit further into the game, I unlocked a ranch that I could use to raise livestock for cooking ingredients. I could select the type of animal I wanted to raise, and then I could select the most appropriate type of food for the way I wanted to raise them. With all the money that I obtained from fishing, I could finally start crafting some equipment. It was possible to buy and find armor within the world, but the only reliable way to obtain weapons was to craft them myself using the materials I obtained after defeating enemies. Some of the materials were rare drops, so there were times where I'd need to kill the same enemies multiple times until I got the materials I needed. I could also craft accessories that would give me additional perks in combat. To craft accessories, I needed to use the ores I'd obtained while exploring the world. Each accessory only required one ore and some money to make, but every ore that I found had its own set of randomized skills and rarities. So depending on the way I wanted to build my characters, I had to pick an appropriate base accessory, use an ore that had the skills I wanted for that character, and then upgrade the accessory to unlock the additional skills that were on the ore I used. Later in the game, it was possible to transfer skills from one accessory to another so that I could make my perfect accessory, but to start off with, I had to make the best use of what I had available to me. After upgrading my gear and practicing with each character until I eventually learned how to control them properly, I saw a huge improvement in the way I played, and I even started to enjoy the gameplay even more than I already was. Based on what I've played, I can tell that they really put everything they had into Tales of Arise. It truly feels like you're on an adventure. It's a big game, but surprisingly the story doesn't require much backtracking. You can travel back to areas you've previously been to, but the game is constantly moving you forward into new locations and environments. While exploring the world, each character has a map action that they can use to reveal hidden locations, open up shortcuts, or assist people that need help. These actions consume various amounts of cure points each use, but the catch is that cure points are used by all characters to activate healing arts, both in and out of combat. There are a few different healing items that can be used in addition to arts, and there were items that could be used to recover my cure points. So most of the time I didn't feel the pressure that should have come from managing this resource. Tales of Arise will most likely have a wider appeal than the past entries in this series, and based on what I've played, I think it will be pretty popular. But because of all the changes that have been made to the gameplay and presentation, some older diehard fans will probably feel like they've been pushed aside. This time around, there is no multiplayer in battles. In the previous entries in this series, it was possible to do couch co-op with up to 4 players who could control the various characters while in battles. But in Tales of Arise, they've put all of their focus into the single player. The grade system from the previous games also seems to have had an overhaul. It's still possible to be graded based on how well you perform in battle, and you'll earn more SP and art proficiency if you do well. But the grade system that would let you unlock additional perks in New Game Plus seems to have been replaced with the artifact system. Artifacts can be found while exploring the world, completing quests, or when overcoming some of the hardest challenges in the game. Each artifact has their own perk that can add additional systems and enhancements to the game, like new difficulty settings, a toggle for increased EXP or SP gain, and even the option for all attacks in the game to deal 1 damage, which I'm sure people that like to practice combos will appreciate. The artifacts that directly affect the gameplay can be toggled on and off, but the majority of the bonuses gained from artifacts can be used as soon as they are obtained, meaning you can make adjustments to the game on your initial playthrough. But they do seem to be balanced appropriately, since you'll need to complete harder challenges to earn the ones that have a bigger impact on the game. One other thing from the past games that people enjoyed was the cosmetic customization options for the characters. I tend to wait until my initial playthrough is complete before I start to change the way my characters look, but there is a full outfit and weapon customization system in Tales of Arise for people to use. Surprisingly, there were quite a few different outfits that could be unlocked in the base game without the need for any of the DLCs. And each weapon that you obtained could be used as a weapon skin if you liked the way a specific weapon looked. There are also owls scattered throughout the world that will give you 1 cosmetic attachment each time you find them, so it's worth keeping an eye out for those as well. But I would advise anyone that plans on playing to be careful of the DLC you claim in your initial playthrough. Certain editions of the game come with DLC outfits and other perks that give loads of money and boosts that could affect the balance of your first playthrough. I claimed them after already finishing all the content in the game, and after seeing what they do, I think it's best that you leave them unclaimed on your first time through if you want to experience everything the game has to offer. That includes some of the outfits too, since some of them actually unlock new skills and passive bonuses for your characters, even if you're not actively using the outfits. So if you want to play the game normally, avoid claiming the premium item pack, the premium travel pack, and the beach time, school life, and warring states costume packs from the unclaimed DLC menu until after your first playthrough. The premium and collaboration costume packs didn't seem to offer any additional benefits, so those ones seem to be fine for a first playthrough if you just want extra costumes without the additional bonuses. I'm not sure that I can say that Tales of Arise has the best story in the series, but it's definitely the most engaging and well presented, and it held my attention from start to finish. Out of all of the Tales games I've played so far, Tales of Arise is definitely my favorite one to play, and I loved all of the time that I spent with the characters. So this is definitely a game I can easily recommend to people that like action games or RPGs. I post smaller gameplay clips and news updates over on Twitter between the videos that I make, so if you want to stay up to date with everything I'm doing, I'll put the links to Twitter and a few other places you can find me in the description. And if you want to see even more news and overview related videos that I make for action games and RPGs, then don't forget to subscribe and remember to click the bell, so you'll be the first to know when a new video is available. I'll be making some new videos very soon, but until I make those videos, I'll see you all later.